Hello and welcome to this week's instalment of In Conversation. This week we're looking at results day and we're looking at the appeals process at the end of year 13. My name is Dr. Karl and Katherine. I'm the Schools Relation Manager at the University of Exeter. I'm joined today by Catherine Lloyd-Clark, who's our Assistant Director responsible for student recruitment and admissions. Hi Catherine, how are you doing?
Hi Carl, hello everyone, hope you're doing well.
Fantastic. Catherine, we're going to go straight into the first question, which is looking at what happens on results day. So students get their results. What happens when they meet their terms of offer?
Okay, so hopefully results day is going to be a really happy day for the majority of you, and you'll be able to log into UCAS and find out there whether your university place has been confirmed. If you've met all the conditions of your offer, then you should be receiving good news, and you should be able to just really look forward then to receiving some congratulations messages and some joining instructions, which will set out all of the steps that you need to take next in terms of getting yourself ready for the start of term. So most of that communication is electronic these days. There might be some social media messages, but principally look out for some really nice big chunky emails that are going to tell you all of the things that you need to do to get yourself ready to start uni.
Fantastic. So those students, it's basically just log on to UCAS Track, get the confirmation, and then sit tight and wait for further communication by email from the university itself.
Absolutely, yeah.
That's brilliant. Now, there will be some circumstances where some students will just narrowly miss those grades. So they'll just about not get those grades. What happens to them?
So in those situations, Carl, there is still a chance that the university might accept you. You may log on to UCAS and find that you have got a decision, even if you did miss your conditions. Now, that decision could be a positive one, and you could have been accepted, even with slightly lower grades. Or alternatively, you might log in and sadly see that your first choice hasn't been able to accept you. In which case you may then have been accepted if you've met the conditions for your insurance choice. If you haven't met the conditions for either, you may then be eligible for clearing, and that would be the next step there. But hopefully, if it's a narrow miss, then the university may still be able to use a bit of flexibility to accept. If it's just a grade or so, that's sometimes possible. Typically, if you've missed a major subject condition, if, for example, you had to get an A in A-level maths and you didn't, then that may be more difficult for the university to be flexible with. It really does depend subject by subject, Carl, and it's very difficult to give general advice on that one. But the basic principle is check on UCAS. If you haven't got a decision at all, if that's still pending, then that's a situation where it's probably an idea to try and contact the university and see what's going on if they haven't already sent you some kind of email explanation or contacted you by phone. So at Exeter, we'll be offering a live chat service where we can help and support with things like that. And there'll also be some context in which you'll be able to speak to us on the phone as well to get some insight into what's happening with your application.
So that's getting in touch directly with the university rather than via UCAS. That is looking at your choices and saying, right, I need to get in touch with that institution.
Yeah, UCAS is able to give general advice and support on procedures. So, for example, if you want to understand something about how to access adjustment or clearing as a general process, UCAS can support with that. But UCAS can't tell you anything about your individual application at a particular university. So if your decision is still pending, then that will be something that you'll need to discuss with the university concerned.
Now, there'll be some students who, when they log on to UCAS Track, they will see that their grades perhaps don't match the grades they were expecting. And that may have repercussions in terms of places at the university that they were hoping to go to, etc. What can they do at that stage?
Yeah, so obviously UCAS won't tell you your results. You need to log on to your examination board for that bit. And UCAS is the bit that tells you about whether or not you've been accepted at your uni choices. So make sure you know what your results are, first. That's the ideal situation. But if you haven't sadly got what you need, and you haven't been accepted through some form of flexibility, then that's a situation where you would be looking at clearing. The only circumstances where I guess that might not apply is if you talk about things with your school and you feel perhaps that there's been a mistake or an error and you want to then go down the appeals route. But it's important to stress there, Karl, that the appeals process isn't really there for people who just don't like the grades that they've been awarded by the school. Schools and colleges are working so hard to be fair and consistent for everybody and to pull together the right evidence for the award that they've recommended. So the appeals process is really there if there's been, for example, a kind of procedural mistake, if maybe you feel like the school, has maybe forgotten to include a key essay that they said they were going to include in your mark, or something like that. So it's really not about appealing just because you feel that the award itself is unfair. You need to have some evidence and some rationale for why the process has let you down.
Okay, and say in these circumstances where students, with advice from teachers, parents, advisors, do decide to go down the appeals process, do they need to tell the university itself that they're going to take that approach?
It's really helpful if you can tell us if you are appealing, and you have you had an offer from Exeter, because we like to try and keep track of the sort of numbers that might be on the move at that time of year. I mean, our numbers management is quite complicated over the summer, and it's really important for us to make sure that we don't have too many students for our lecture theatres or our laboratories, that we have, the right accommodation for everybody, and that we keep a really high quality student experience, Karl. So the numbers management is there to look after all of those things. And if we find that loads and loads of students are appealing, then we would probably take a more cautious approach to our numbers management after the 10th of August. Whereas if the numbers look pretty steady, then we'll kind of carry on as we would do, allocating places and making decisions in a nice, steady, managed way. So yes, it's really helpful for us to know that somebody's appealing, and we will then log that in our system. We won't be able to take any other decisions on that application except on the basis of the results we've already had. But obviously, if the appeal then comes through and changes those results so that you then meet the conditions that we set, then we would look at honouring your place up until the 31st of August. We only guarantee to honour that place up until the 31st of August. After that date, we'll look at your application case by case, because it does vary greatly for individual programmes of study as to whether a place would be available after that date. So medicine, for example, might be full at that point, or English with study in North America might be full. But in fact, on another programme of study like archaeology, there might still be plenty of spaces available, just to take a random example. So it very much depends programme by programme after the end of August.
So to clarify, if we get the results of those appeals before the end of August, the 31st of August, we honour to commit, or the commitment that we made in terms of that place, we honour to make that place available. If
Yep.
it's after, then it's dependent on whether there are spaces and circumstances post 31st of August.
That's right, and just for everybody to be aware, there may be other universities that are offering to have a slightly longer phase for looking at appeals. They might be honouring appeals down to, for example, the 7th of September. But it is up to each university to decide what their cutoff is. And for us, because our real priority is managing the high quality of the campus experience, we feel we need to do that by the end of August. And also at Exeter, we do have a pretty early start date in September. We will consider things case by case after the end of August, as I've said, and there is the potential, Karl, in theory, for students to start the term late, right the way down to the 8th of October. So in the event that somebody had an appeal that came through right at the end of September, for example, and they then met our conditions at that point, if we had space on the programme that they wanted to study, we would be able to support them to start up until that 8th of October date. But it really does very much depend on available space. And in those circumstances, it would also be a good idea for for students to think about whether they want to start having missed Freshers' Week, having not had that same experience as everyone else at the start of term. And we would then also potentially offer the opportunity to come next year if that was better for the student concerned.
Fantastic. That brings us to the end of the Year 13 admissions timeline for now. So Katherine, thank you for that fantastic insight into the process. We'll be back again next week with a different topic, but for now, thank you very much for joining us and see you next week. Goodbye.
Good luck, everyone, as well.